Hey everybody, this is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous good-looking friends. In today's video, I'm looking for a sanity check. So today, Omid Scobie, Meghan and Harry's unofficial mouthpiece as well as biographer, testified against the newspaper that Prince Harry is in process of suing. Unfortunately, this trial and testimony was not broadcasted live. However, Sky News gave a play-by-play as they had a journalist inside the courtroom. Here is what they had reported. So questioning kicks off with giving a lowdown on Omid Scobie's background as well as questions surrounding his closeness to Meghan and Harry. So this is what more or less went on record. So it begins straight into details of Harry and Meghan's biography. And they write, Andrew Green, KC, representing MGN, says Harry and Meghan biographer Omid Scobie has regularly given interviews about the couple, to which the journalist adds, and other members of the royal family. Mr. Green says the book was favorable towards the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, although Mr. Scobie says it was fair. The barrister says Mr. Scobie had great access to the couple and the participation of those closest to them in his writing of the biography Finding Freedom. This included talking about how the Duke personally felt about his constitutional duty, Mr. Green says. He says this, in quotes, must have all come from presumably the Duke and Duchess or sources close to them, end quote. Mr. Scobie says this came from, in quotes, sources. So Andrew Green continues speaking for MGN and begins to ask whether Scobie's sympathies lie with Harry and Meghan. So as he continues to question the biographer, Mr. Green asks whether Mr. Scobie's sympathies lie with the Duke and Duchess. The reporter says this is not true. He says he often has deeper insights and access to sources close to Harry and Meghan, while other journalists may have lent on the palace. He also asked about his retweet of a Byline Times article referring to Teflon Piers, indicating Piers Morgan. Mr. Scobie says most of his Twitter feed is retweets and that his retweets aren't endorsements or me co-signing someone else's opinion. Now, if I understand this correctly so far, Omid Scobie is saying that he has close sources, but he has not said that he has sources directly from both Meghan or Harry. This is what I understand this to be. Now, next, it goes into Omid Scobie, who wrote a biography on Harry and Meghan, says he has desperately tried to move away from allegations that he is friends with the couple. He tells the court he is constantly being called the couple's friend, mouthpiece, cheerleader, but is no different to any other royal correspondent having an area of focus. He says he doesn't have Prince Harry's phone number and has never socialized with him before. Asked whether his links to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have helped further his career, Mr. Scobie says his appearance in court today is giving ammunition to the tabloids and making my life difficult. He says he is repeatedly called a liar about some of my access to the couple. Every successful royal correspondent has a member of the royal family they've chosen to focus on and make their niche, he says, adding that Harry and Meghan are the most written about members of the royal family. Okay, so this is what Scobie has said, putting his foot down that his relationship is not a personal one with Meghan and Harry, and that he has been given a lot of hate online because of his reporting. Keep that all in mind. So Andrew Green continues further to talk about the closeness that Scobie had with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex collaborating on this book, Finding Freedom. And it says here, Mr. Green says that in Mr. Scobie's witness statement, there's no reference to the Duke and Duchess expressively authorizing their communications team to cooperate on the book. Mr. Scobie replies that every time a journalist goes to a communications officer at the palace about a story, the officer will have to go and check with a member of the royal family. He says the communications team, no doubt, would have had to have checked things with Harry and Meghan. The reporter says there was no direct cooperation between himself and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. This gets better, guys. The reporter says there was no direct cooperation between himself and the Sussexes, and he was not aware of how much approval had been given by the royals. He says he had no idea about any of the conversations the communications team had with Meghan. Mr. Green alleges Mr. Scobie, in quotes, deliberately omitted from his witness statement that Harry and Meghan had collaborated on the book. So as reported, the questioning then goes into Scobie's experience and his time spent at MGN Sunday People newspaper, as well as the Daily Mirror's 3 a.m. column. And it goes into Omid talking about his experience back in 2002. I'm not going to get into that right now because I'm trying to figure out if I understand the English language properly. In the statements made by Scobie about his relationship with Harry and Meghan, as I am an American and understand American English, my interpretation of Omid Scobie making these statements indicates to me that he has once again committed perjury. So let's take this first statement where he says he doesn't have Prince Harry's phone number and has never socialized with him before. Perhaps, maybe Omid Scobie doesn't have Harry's current phone number at this time, which he could very well say he doesn't have it. And it's also saying that it's just Prince Harry. It's not including Meghan. So we'll give him that benefit of the doubt. However, never socializing with Prince Harry before? I'm going to have to challenge that because in Finding Freedom, Omid wrote the prologue and he had stated that Carolyn and him have closely followed the work of the royal family since long before Meghan joined what is known as the firm. He goes in to say that he had lost his passport in Brazil, and the next time that he saw Harry, he had called him or nicknamed him Passport and poking fun with him. But then he goes in to say here, being far from the scrutiny and pressures of home was also an opportunity for heart-to-hearts. On that same trip, Harry confessed to me at a small drinks gathering at our hotel that he really wished he were just a normal guy who could pick up and spend a year in Brazil pursuing his own passions. I don't know about that, guys, but to me that sounds pretty familiar and personal, as well as having a heart-to-heart with someone who is just a stranger. Sell me something else, Omid, because I'm not buying what you have today. Testifying and saying that there was no direct cooperation between himself and the Sussexes, and he was not aware of how much approval had been given by the royals. I'm going to have to challenge that based off of my understanding of American English, and according to what I read in Finding Freedom, at the end of the book, in the author's note written by Scobie, it says, the events described in these pages draw on hundreds of hours of conversation and interviews with more than 100 sources, as well as our own time accompanying, observing, and interacting with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex on all of their formal and, get this guys, informal royal engagements. You would think, in knowing how neurotic and psycho these two are around their privacy, that they would control who is with them at all times and even shadowing them, having them vetted, and even as so much controlling over what is being said and pushed out into the media. So for Scobie to say that he had no direct cooperation between himself and the Sussexes is an outright lie, considering that he printed it in this book. And let's not forget that court case in the UK in November 2021, in which both Omid Scobie and Meghan were outed as being liars. I mean, how could we forget the witness statement that Omid Scobie gave, and where he stated that there was no corroboration between the Sussexes and him in writing Finding Freedom, which we now know that that was an outright lie. I guess the UK court system doesn't really take seriously perjury like how we take it seriously here in the United States in our judicial system. In fact, this is kind of a mockery of the judicial system in not holding Omid Scobie and holding him in contempt of court, which you would think has a jail sentence or a fine as the consequence. And finally, for Scobie to say that he had no idea about any of the conversations the communications team had with Meghan, that's absolute bullshit, because there's email evidence showing that clearly Omid Scobie was in the loop and alignment with Meghan and Harry on the launch of this book, as well as what was being put into it. This email from Jason where he writes, "I also had close to 2 hours with Omid and Carolyn yesterday. I took them through everything. They're going to time the book for run up to the baby being born, and it's going to be very positive. They are prioritizing the US market and will position it as a celebration of you that corrects the record on a number of fronts. I will stay in close contact with them. Let me know if helpful to speak." So these two, the Sussex deceitful duo, were in alignment on getting this book out with Omid Scobie. So for him to say this in a court of law, I think, quite frankly, his testimony should be retracted or stricken out of court, because anything else that he is saying you cannot trust or take seriously. He's recounting a story about Piers Morgan from 2002. How do we know that he's credible? We don't, because he's proved himself to be a liar, especially in a court of law. Does Omid really think people are that stupid? In Meghan and Harry's last engagement, informal, that they had at Buckingham Palace, only Omid Scobie was invited to report on this little secret meeting. As you can see him lurking in the background there, but he did give quotes to the Mirror in which Omid revealed that Meghan gave him a final hug goodbye and then said, "It didn't have to be this way." I mean, seriously, guys, why aren't these people in jail? They're deliberately lying in a court of law, and nothing is happening to them? I don't know. What does that say about the UK court system? Does his truth surpass the truth? I mean, in the United States, this would be considered lying, just from an outside observation looking in. A lie is a lie. Did I understand what was being reported here? Sometimes I feel like I live in an alternate reality when some of this stuff comes up and you're saying, geez, like, why is nobody pushing back and holding these people's feet to the fire? And while that was happening today, of course, more Meghan Markle propaganda being pushed out. And I don't think that the new PR management team or talent agency that is trying to market this woman fully understands that the public is just exhausted. And we see this couple for what they are: opportunists, and quite frankly, don't care about anybody else but themselves. And all of this is just a facade. So Meghan and Harry, pretending to be royal again, spent an hour, the 1 hour that they spend a week, having a candid conversation with the teens aged 14 to 18 from Santa Barbara about how mental well-being is affected by societal pressures and social media in the digital age. I'm sorry, but they are the last people that should be asked to talk about mental wellness, considering how much destruction and division they have caused on purpose in order to profit. Now, I've said this once and I'll say it again. Parents need to recognize that these two should not be anywhere near the youth. I'm surprised that this nonprofit organization allowed them to come in and exploit these teens the way that they have. Not only are they chiming off of this social impact trend, but they're using it for their own benefit and brand management, which to me, for them to be talking about mental health and awareness, especially around social media, and knowing that these two have been behind some of the most ruthless hate campaigns against their own family, shame on this organization to use these two to bring attention to their organization. Couldn't they find somebody else in LA to come and do a photo op? I mean, this really doesn't look good upon the organization who brought them in and allowed them access to these impressionable teens in order to gather data, perhaps maybe to use towards the next election, or at least to groom them in this destructive woke ideology that has been destroying society. To me, I find this very predatory, and quite frankly, parents should be upset. Honestly, would any parent want their children to be surrounded by these two, especially knowing that Meghan is capable of mental abuse? I mean, no doubt that she has caused a lot of harm to the palace staff that she bullied and mentally abused. Let's not forget the Sussex squad terrorists that they are funding in order to go after her own family, to harass and threaten safety into getting someone to be silent. Let's not forget how many voices Meghan Markle has shut up because she can't handle criticism. Would anybody want this totalitarian influencing your children? Absolutely not. So I don't understand how this organization felt that it was appropriate to bring in these two toxic individuals to come and prey on the impressionable youth. I think it's worth it to either give a call or shoot an email to this organization in letting them know it's not okay to allow two predators to come in and exploit these youth, especially since they have caused so much harm in the community. And for a nonprofit organization to stand and support what they are doing, which in essence supports the bad behavior, such as the lying, the treating people terribly, harming their own family, and then using them as role models, that says something about the organization itself. My guess is because Harry is a member of the royal family and he is a prince. That's the only reason why they got their foot in the door to sit there. Neither of them have any credentials to be speaking on mental health and address the topic of societal pressures in social media. Let's remember, Meghan used mental health as a way to victimize herself on Oprah Winfrey, fully knowing that she was full of shit. Bottom line, Meghan and Harry are bold-faced liars, and I don't care how much money they put into rebranding themselves or changing and getting new representation. It's not going to change the public's perception of what they have done. No amount of rebranding is going to cover up the fact that they accelerated on purpose the deaths of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, something that people need to not forget about and hold these two accountable for. Hollywood really believes that if they push the narrative long enough, eventually it will become fact. I'm sorry, but this is not a situation where that's going to happen because there's a whole force of people who will not forget what these two have done over the last 5 years that has been damaging beyond repair. As exhausting as these two are, I feel like it's our duty to continue to keep this stuff at the forefront because this is exactly what they want to do. They want us to become exhausted. They want us to stop talking about them and forget whatever they did happened. That's not going to happen. So, what do you guys think? Definitely leave your thoughts. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I will talk to you later. Bye!
Such a fraud.